Right.
So I think it'll be more stable. All right, we should be coming back now.
Just tell me when we're back, Matt. Well, what do you think about that? I mean, we didn't call Facebook and ask them just to cut us off. So, but as soon as we went off the air, Matt started laughing, which I thought was very rude. But you know, watching you or me. So what was I saying?
We were about to show a clip of something from.
Oh yeah, I was gonna show you a clip of Wisdom Harbor.
Just give it a minute and let everybody get back in.
Yeah, we're just giving it a minute and let everybody get back in. But this is Mr. Rios. How you doing? Yeah, Tammy. I think Facebook was listening, or Meta, or whoever they are now. But we're giving it a minute to let everybody get back on. But this is part of why we're making the shift. Hello, Andy. I was doing one of your speeches this morning. Have a good one. Oh, I appreciate that. I'm glad you were doing one. Did you give me credit or no? I mean, you know, the way you do that is the first time you do it, you say, it's like my good friend Andy Andrews always says. And then the second time you do it, you say, it's like a good friend of mine always says. And then the third time you do it, you say, it's like I always say. Becky Ottenberry. Okay, all right. Here, what I was talking about, I was wanting to show you guys just a piece of something on Wisdom Harbor. And so one of the things we have is a doc that's called a Bet You Didn't Know doc, and it's heavily weighted toward science and history and cultural stuff, and so it can be used in a classroom, or it can be used for a business, because when business people become more culturally literate, have more to talk about other than just what was on TV last night or the ball game scores, they become more conversant with a larger group of people, and more confident, bigger self-image, and relationships grow. So there is, and this is also, I mean, we've played them right before dinner, and then sat down at dinner and talked about it. And so let's show. How about I bet you didn't know? Can we do the art of the heist?
Yep.
We'll do the first half of it.
Okay.
All right. Here we go. Bet you didn't know that a painting once got more worldwide media attention than the opening ceremonies at the Olympics. It was just after 6 a.m. on February 12, 1994, and most of the athletes in Lillehammer's Olympic Village were still in bed. That evening, with Norway hosting, the Winter Olympics would kick off with the traditional spectacle that is the opening ceremony. From all over the world, athletes, news organizations, and sports fans had gathered to witness an event that focused the planet every 4 years. One would think that nothing could knock that news story off its pedestal. But, meanwhile, Not too many miles away was Norway's National Museum, the old brick building that proudly displayed Edvard Munch's well-known masterpiece, The Scream. Museum curators had installed the painting in room 10, next to a second-story window that faced the street. There were no protective bars on the window, and the panes were made of ordinary, rather than reinforced, glass. The Scream, valued at more than $100 million, was not even fastened to the wall. Nope, it just hung from a wire, like you would hang something your Uncle Harry had painted in high school. Oh, and it didn't have any connection to the alarm system. The night guard finished his rounds at about 6 in the morning and then retreated to his desk for coffee and the newspaper, or perhaps a quick nap. I'm sure he scanned the array of cameras before he sipped or read or went to sleep. But whether he did or didn't, it wouldn't have mattered. The museum's cameras were out of date and left some vital areas uncovered in room 10. One vital area was where the $100 million painting was hanging. For several days in a row, the workmen at a construction site near the National Gallery had left a ladder lying in plain view at the end of their day. So, in the dark, a few hours before dawn, somebody borrowed it. At about 6:15 a.m., a couple of guys leaned the ladder against the second-floor window of Norway's National Museum. They didn't cut the phone lines. They didn't disarm the burglar alarm. Speed was their friend. The thieves went up the ladder, broke the window, took the painting, and were down the ladder and gone before anybody knew what was happening. By the time the Olympic opening ceremonies began, everyone with the television set in every country in the world knew about the theft in Norway. And while reporters talked for the cameras, the executive curator at the National Gallery placed a gift shop poster of the stolen masterpiece on the wall where it had been. Oh, another thing I'll bet you didn't know. The Scream was not insured. Actually, as hard as it is to believe, most of the great paintings in Europe worth millions of dollars are not insured. In Great Britain's National Gallery, the works of art in the permanent collection are not insured against theft. The logic, if you can call it that, is that they don't want to spend treasury money twice. Public funds bought the paintings, they figure, therefore the public should not be financially burdened with buying insurance. American museums do buy insurance against theft, but the coverage is rarely adequate. Ultimately, it's a failure of imagination that seems to trip up the art world. It's like they believe that because these paintings are so valuable, no one would dare steal one. A painting that any buyer would immediately know was stolen is just not going to be stolen, is it? Yes. Museums and collectors, however, also tend to just ignore the possibility and pretty much just wish the whole topic would go away. It's like the art world is going, no, 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 no. And that would be fine with the thieves. I mean, they're fine with it because art crime is a thriving industry. Interpol, the International Police Agency, reports that the amount of money changing hands in the art underworld comes to between $4 and $6 billion a year. And on the list of international illicit activity, art crime is number 3, trailing only drugs and illegal arms.
Okay.
It's
all
not
right.
that the art
Let's stop
world-
it there.
Okay, so there's obviously more, and we talk about the museum that could be created with stolen art, and detail how many Rembrandts have been stolen, how many Van Goghs, how many Picassos, and it's stunning. And we go into how some of them were done, but there's just a a Bet You Didn't Know. There are Bet You Didn't Knows on the egg. There's Bet You Didn't Knows on the Stargazer, the meanest fish in the world, on Einstein's brain being stolen by the coroner. And one's coming. I think it's on our way with the content barge about the tomato. One's coming about why World War II ended in 1974. And so there's all kinds of things on Wisdom Harbor, but check it out. So let's get to our thing today. But we would urge you, go ahead and get on Wisdom Harbor and don't miss the blue plates. And here we go. All right. These are the 21 first lines in songs that are most recognizable. And this is by no means a definitive list. We may do this again, and we're definitely going to do it again for our Christmas show. But let me start with, well, there's this little girl in our neighborhood. Her name is Charlotte Johnson, and she's really looking good. Okay, that's not really one of them, but I just wanted to do that because if Polly's watching, she's like rolling her eyes, because that's swanging. Okay, John Anderson did that. You remember that? Her name is Charlotte Johnson, and she's really looking good. Her mama was in the back. I don't know. It's a crazy song, but when it comes on, it's very recognizable. All right, here's our real list. Well, it's 1 for the money, 2 for the show, 3 to get ready. Now go, cat, go. All right, Elvis did that, but Carl Perkins wrote it, and obviously this opening line made Elvis Presley a star, and as legend has it, Johnny Cash encouraged Perkins to write a song about a military airman who referred to the issued footwear as blue suede shoes. And when it came time for the opening lines, Perkins approached it like a nursery rhyme and thought of 1 for the money, and the rest is history. Okay? Here is another one. Ready? I read the news today, oh boy. That is from the album A Day in the Life by the Beatles. Got you? Okay. I read the news today, oh boy. All right. Here is a country one. He said, I'll love you till I die. Little M, do you know what that is? Oh, come on. That song is on a lot of lists as the #1 country song of all time. That's George Jones. He Stopped Loving Her Today. Bobby Braddock wrote that song. And when George recorded that in the studio, he went home that day hating that song. He didn't like the song. And they released it as a single, which is like you don't like the song, we're releasing it as a single. And then it's on a lot of lists as #1 country song of all time. He said, I'll love you till I die. Okay, all right, here we go. Old man, look at my life. I'm a lot like you were. Remember that? That's the song Old Man. Kevin Perkins is listening closely here, by Neil Young. And one of our Wisdom Harbor captains, Anthony Crawford with Sugarcane Jane, was the front man for Neil Young and toured with Neil for years all over the world and wrote songs there. So, all right, here we go. Here's another one. Busted flat in Baton Rouge, headed for a train, feeling nearly faded as my jeans. Now, that's a good first line. I mean, that is good, man. That's me and Bobby McGee. Chris Christopherson wrote that, and Polly loves Chris Christopherson. It was his girlfriend at the time, Janis Joplin. Did you know that Chris Christopherson and Janis Joplin were an item? So, but anyway, Janis Joplin made that song a #1 classic. But the opening lyrics like set this downtrodden stage, I guess. But the song actually takes a happy turn, and then it bookends itself with heartache. But that's a classic song. All right, how about this one? A long, long time ago, I can still remember how that music used to make me smile. Got it? American Pie by Don McLean. Don McLean also wrote Vincent, which is the first line of Starry, Starry Night. All right, here is one I bet you hadn't thought about in a while, but this is an iconic first line. Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again. Well, you got that one? Okay. All right, good. That's good. See, Paul Simon was in his early 20s when he wrote this song, this The Sound of Silence. And his penchant for writing songs with his guitar in the dark led to the opening lines to one of the greatest songs of all time, and the overall meaning of the song's been a mystery through the years, but hearing something as simple as playing the guitar in a quiet room with the lights off kind of adds to the thing, doesn't it? And that was The Sound of Silence by Simon and Garfunkel. All right, here you go. Here's a good one. At first I was afraid, I was petrified, kept thinking I could never live without you by my side. But then I spent so many nights thinking how you did me wrong, and I grew strong, and I learned how to get along. I Will Survive by Gloria Gaynor. That was a disco song. But I think that became like an iconic part of a woman's movement, but that first I was afraid, I was petrified. That was great. Now, here is a classic. I wandered so aimless, life filled with sin, I wouldn't let my dear Savior in. You got it? You got that, Matt? I Saw the Light by Hank Williams. I wandered so aimless, life filled with sin, I wouldn't let my dear Savior in. Yeah, that's a great song. That's a great song. Okay. I love this one. See if you can figure this out. Come and listen to a story about a man named Jed. I mean, that's an iconic first line to a song. The Beverly Hillbillies. And Paul Henning wrote that song, and he was the producer of the show, and he wrote the song to kind of set up the story of what was happening, why these hillbillies were in Beverly Hills. And so when you listen to that song, you realize it sets up the whole situation, So he also did the same thing when he produced Petticoat Junction. And the opening line to that is, come ride this little train that is rolling around the bend to the junction. Petticoat Junction. I thought it was curious that both those songs started with the word come. Come and listen to a story about a man named Jed. Come ride this little train that is rolling down the track to the junction. Remember Uncle Joe? He's moving kind of slow at the junction. Petticoat Junction. Okay, here you go. Here's one. Well, I woke up Sunday morning with no way to hold my head that didn't hurt. Sunday morning coming down. It's a Johnny Cash song, but again, Chris Christopherson wrote it. Chris Christopherson, I mean, he was a genius. He was a Rhodes Scholar and a Golden Gloves boxer. How about that? And he is probably the probably the wealthiest songwriter alive, still alive. Well, no, because I know somebody else who's ahead of them. Okay, how about this? Here's the first line. Now, let me read this seriously. Ooga shaka, ooga ooga, ooga shaka, ooga ooga. Got that one? That is Hooked on a Feeling by B.J. Thomas. It's hard to believe that the guy who did Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head also did Ooga Shaka, Ooga, Ooga, Ooga Shaka, Ooga Shaka. Anyway, but he did. All right, how about this one? There is a house in New Orleans they call the Rising Sun. It's the House of the Rising Sun. And so many folks have done that song that you can't really credit it to one person or one group. All right. Here's one that was a big deal, I think when I was in high school or college, but this just is an iconic first line. Carry on, my wayward son, there will be peace when you are done. Kansas. And you remember that guy with the hair down to here that kind of did like that, and he played the flute? Remember that? It's like, I think he played the flute on Dust in the Wind, didn't he? All we are is dust in the wind. Such an uplifting song. Yes, all you are is, you feel bad? Well, all you are is dust in the wind. So that's not an encouraging song, I'm thinking. All right, how about this one? How about this first line to a song that came out when I was in the 6th grade, and everybody still remembers this. Jeremiah was a bullfrog. You got it, don't you, William? What? Our Gen Z? Are you serious? You serious you don't know that? Matt? Comments?
I would have known the band name, but I never saw it.
When I hear the opening of that song, ladies and gentlemen, I think about being on the playground at Girard Elementary School in Dothan, Alabama, and on the swings and swinging to Three Dog Night, doing Jeremiah was a bullfrog, was a good friend of mine. He never understood a single word he said, but he always had some mighty fine wine. Okay. So you need to listen to that. As soon as this show is over, you need to listen to that. Serena Stoll Garner said that was your first concert, Three Dog Night. Wow. And Jen Andrews, I agree. That is pitiful. That's pitiful that you don't know that. Three Dog Night, not every member of the band liked the song when they did it, but they eventually had a lot of fun with it because it's a classic, and it went to number 1. And, it was written by Hoyt Axton. Now, Hoyt Axton was a country music guy who also wrote some other, I wish I could remember. Google Hoyt Axton songwriter for me. And turn your microphone on. I didn't hear you. But what has Hoyt written?
There we go. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
All right. Let's see. Hoyt is...
Hoyt Axton.
Let's see. Wild Bull Rider, Della and the Dealer.
Della and the Dealer.
Bony Fingers.
Bony Fingers. I remember that.
He does have a Joy to the World cover.
Yeah.
Evangelina. Mountain Right. Heartbreak Hotel.
Well, he didn't write Heartbreak Hotel.
Okay, well, he's performing it.
That's coming. All right. But so anyway, all right. So here we go. here's the next one. And by the way, Billboard said this was one of the most memorable lines in music history, and not just to open a song, but in music history. Jeremiah was a bullfrog. So that's right. K.W. Keene says Hoyt Axton wrote "Never Been to Spain." Yep. All right, so here we go. Now, get this one. Well, since my baby left me, I found a new place to dwell. It's down at the end of Lonely Street. That's Heartbreak Hotel. Now, you got that one. That's Elvis. But get this. It was written by Mae Axton. That is Hoyt's mama. and I knew Hoyt and I knew Mae. And I remember being in Nashville, everybody called her Mama Mae. And she lived in this big white mansion. When you think of a mansion, you're thinking of her house, the big white columns and that kind of stuff. And I was in her kitchen and I saw this plaque, and it was from ASCAP, I guess, and it was in recognition of that song having played on the radio more than 1 billion times. Now this was 25 years ago, 30 years ago. And I never will forget what she said to me when I said, Mama Mae, 1 billion times Heartbreak Hotel is played on the radio. She said, yes, honey, that song still pays my rent, and my rent ain't cheap. I think of that every time I hear that song. All right, here we go. When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. Let It Be from the Beatles.
Oh, Christy loves the Beatles.
Really? Does she?
She does. I remember she said they're overrated one time.
How can the Beatles be overrated? I don't know. I guess you could. I guess they... You know, Austin came back from Idaho last year and said snow was overrated. So I guess that's a matter of opinion. All right. Now, I need to say this one seriously, too. Okay? I need to recite this first line seriously. Well, you can tell by the way I use my walk. I'm a woman's man. No time to talk. Sounds kind of stupid when you do it like that, doesn't it? That was the #1 Billboard hit off the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack, and it's still one of the defining songs of the disco era. So the Bee Gees did it, and this opening line pretty much sums up the character of Tony Manero, who's played by John Travolta. It pretty much sums up his personality, that persona he put out when he was walking down the street holding a can of paint as the movie was opening. Remember that? Ha, 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 staying alive. And Christy, my sister, boy, you're just like, you are opening yourself up. Christy says, can't stand the Beatles, overrated. Wow, you're opening yourself up for some hate there, Christy. I mean, you know. I remember one time being around a guy named George Keep, George was a high school football coach. We were in a meeting and somebody had announced that some Beatles impersonators were coming. And everybody was like, yeah. And George turned around to me and went, Polly and I have always laughed at that because we thought, yeah, a high school football coach from the 60s, he would have hated the Beatles. Okay, let's see. Here we go. Maybe I didn't love you quite as often as I should have. That's always on my mind. And the two definitive versions of that were both done by people that you say their first names and everybody knows who they are. Willie and Elvis. You know, maybe I didn't love you. So, I mean, those two, Willie Nelson did that. Always on my mind. All right, here we go. Just a small town girl living in a lonely world. She took the midnight train going nowhere. Just a city boy born and raised in South Detroit. Took the midnight train going anywhere. That's Journey. And actually, there is no area of the city of Detroit, there's no area of the city known as South Detroit. Because if you look at that on the map, South Detroit would be Canada. But Steve Perry from Journey, I guess he thought it sounded good, and he was right. He was right, because it does sound good. All right, here's our last one. Here's our last one. And this is also iconic, and I love the way these words pour together. Ready? Tumble out of bed and stumble to the kitchen, pour myself a cup of ambition and yawn and stretch and try to come to life. There's 9 to 5 with Dolly Parton. Okay, so we will do this again, but I would love to hear on your comments, I would love to hear some iconic first lines to you. Okay, so comment for us, and we'll bring yours to a show coming up. So if you hadn't had a chance to check out Wisdom Harbor, this is your first time hearing about it, go to wisdomharbor.com, wisdom, HARBOUR.com. Take that virtual tour, pick a plan that's right for you, and let's get going, okay? The content barges are showing up, deckhands are unloading it and stacking it on the docks, and so there's good things coming with Wisdom Harbor. Good things coming for all of us. Take care. Bye-bye.